Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 271, being recorded on October 2nd, 2013. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malventano.
And I think I'm Scummy Show.
We have a full allotment, whatever you want to call it, of people today. Did you guys know it's October?
Yes.
No.
It's
That's why I'm drinking
Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest.
And of course I'm missing it.
Which was kind of a shock to me. All day yesterday I went around with my watch telling me it was the 31st. Now it took me half of the day to go, no, there's no 31st day of September, is there? So it was a shock to me that today was October.
What kind of watch?
A really nice one.
You know,
It's not very
it
accurate,
has
but it's pretty.
analog dials that you have to go from the 30th to the 1st
Correct.
on months that...
Yeah.
February is a real bitch.
Yeah, I
which
know.
will-
It's February 30th, guys.
Yeah.
Wait, what? So I wasn't here last week, and I heard Josh Tech went very well. Did it?
Yes.
It was good?
Yeah.
All right.
I scored a lot of money from that episode somehow.
Really? You have to let me know how you did that so that I
Yes.
can do that into the future. Because we don't
It
do
involved
that.
heat pumps.
We don't do that. So we have quite a bit of stuff to talk about this week. I want to start off with by teasing you, Josh in particular, about a giveaway we're going to have for this podcast and the next couple of podcasts. I don't know if you guys know about a game called Batman Arkham Origins. Is that right?
I thought it was pronounced Oregons.
Arkham Origins.
Arkham
That'll work too.
Origins.
NVIDIA has been kind enough to donate a handful of Batman Arkham Origins keys that we're going to give away to podcast listeners. And we'll do that somewhere, but in the middle of the show, we're going to have a secret code word that you're going to need to input into a form. This was so successful last time. What was
It's
the
not
word?
Joshy Josh, is it?
Joshy Josh will not be the code word this time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It'll be something along those lines probably, but it won't exactly be that. If you're watching us record this live, you will have to wait until tomorrow when we actually make the podcast post to submit your form entry, but you will already have the secret code word. So we'll talk about that more as we get to it. What else was there? Was something else I was going to mention off the top. Oh, you know what I did today, guys? Any guesses?
You wrapped up hoses so that they won't freeze with the coming frost.
Incorrect. Anybody else?
You prepared
You-
for October.
I did.
Wait a minute. Ryan is the guy that ran a 500-foot network cable like outdoors in the winter.
During the summer.
No, you guys are totally down the wrong path.
You gave your wife flowers and a new toy.
No.
Toy? Whoa.
I participated in a deposition in a patent lawsuit today, and the only reason I bring this up is because
We're
never.
being sued, aren't we?
No, we're not. We are not being sued. So two companies. I won't mention what the companies are. I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about really, but I'm going to talk about a whole lot of it. Two companies are suing each other, and somehow I became involved. And they're software companies, and I thought this is kind of odd. And this particular forum thread was of import to them. This is a thread that was started December 13th, 2001 by Wild Blue. The subject, how to change a motherboard without reinstalling Windows into applications.
Okay.
And long story short, I guess, is that this thread, these two companies that are suing each other over a patent, the one that is being sued says you can't sue us because there's prior art out of this process being done. And here is evidence of this process being done. This whole thread talking about this function, right?
Yeah.
So they called me in because they wanted me to tell them that, yes, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, the database has not been modified. Yes, I believe that this post existed today as it did in 2001. That when we moved from Athlon MB to AMD MB to pcper, that the content was not changed, etc. There's a whole lot of stupid questions that I could have easily answered in an email or over the phone, but without a court reporter there, I guess it's just not damn official. But what I thought was most intriguing about this was the lawyer representing the it's not the defendant, it's the plaintiff in this case, was trying to make the case that nobody on these forums is intelligent and you should never listen to anything that they say officially.
Well, he does have a point.
He does have a point in many cases, but you know, I wasn't mad at him. I talked to him for 20 minutes beforehand. He seems like a nice guy. He's just doing his job. But what I thought was, it was both annoying and funny, is that as part of the questioning, we went through every single user that posted in this thread, and he asked me, have you ever met Wild Blue? No. Have you ever seen his resume that may indicate that he is qualified to talk about such subjects? And I'd say no. And he would go, how about Vic Levine? How about Palandri? How about Vegas Vampire?
How about Spanky Pendergrast?
So
Wait.
he goes all the way through this, you know, and
Yeah.
there's like Big Daddy 51, and like the court reporter kind of snickers, and
How about AMD Bum Lover?
no, it's not on there. Jacko 2. My favorite was probably the last, if I can scroll down here, was anti-Nazi. So in an official,
Just clear that up.
it's just funny. Like in this official court document, they're like, Mr. Shroud, have you ever met anti-Nazi? I was like, no.
Have you ever met molested by ASUS?
Right. He
Well.
luckily didn't post in that.
Good thing.
And I thought that was it was telling about our legal system that I had to waste 2.5 hours of my day.
No, wait. So it was
down there.
the guys that are okay. So if I get this straight, the guy that's asking this stuff and is trying to, you know, supposedly, eventually somewhere else make the point with that line of questions that people on the forums are, you know, not experts or whatever. Doesn't that sort of undermine their own argument because their patent is supposed to be such a awesome thing that they had to patent? And if some forum guy with no expertise was able to post on this in 2001, you know,
Right.
it's like that just sort of means that this is a very, what's the thing you can't patent if it's just like, what's that term? If it's just like an obvious thing or something,
Common
you know?
knowledge. No.
I know what you're trying to say, but it's he was basically trying to discredit the forum as a place where anybody would go for reliable information. So therefore, the company being sued would never have sourced information from the internet. The guy that was the defendant's lawyer was like, you know, why do people use forums? I go, they go there so they can discuss problems and work out issues as a community, and they, you know, go back and forth, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but eventually they come to some kind of conclusion most of the time.
A few cats come by, but
There were questions like, was this post publicly viewable since it was originally posted in 2001? I was like, yeah. How would one find this? An internet search, I guess. Right?
Google.
Yeah. And actually, he
Googled
actually
this for
brought
you.
up.
Be like, would you like me to show you? And then you just type in like reinstall Windows, but reinstall motherboard or change motherboard without reinstalling Windows.
Let's talk about crap. Not even the
There you
first
go.
result for that.
Oh,
anymore. We're down there, but we're not the first result anymore. But again, this is a post from 2011,
So-
or I'm sorry, 2001. 2001. And they were like, have you read each of... They asked stupid questions like, do you read and edit every post before it goes up on your forum? It's
Nope.
like, what? You have no idea how the internet works? Like, hell no, we don't do that. So, oh well.
I think it's more that
was two of my
they
day.
know what the internet works. They just don't hope that the judge and the jury don't know what the
Right.
internet works.
Right. At the end of the day, nobody paid me thousands of dollars for my testimony. I got an $80 check to cover gas and time and lunch. And
Hey, that's not bad. I'll
Sue
take that
them for
every
stealing
day.
information off of your forum and making money off of it.
they had the funny thing is they had about 10 copies of that printed out forum thread, which I was like, you guys like have laptops, like you can just read that stuff right there. Oh well.
That would be
Courts
too internet.
like paper.
Anyway, let's move on to some hardware. What happened this week? We had some stuff. I posted a review of the Intel NUC, next unit of computing, the D5425WYK, otherwise known
Boy,
as...
that's almost like Gigabyte.
This is worse. Well, okay, so it's the Haswell-based NUC. It is actually using the, if we go back to the article, the 4250 processor. So I don't know what D5 is for. Maybe it's the 5th generation. I don't know.
Yeah, you do.
WYK.
It's a pre-Earth contact Klingon warship.
Okay.
D5.
All right. I'm going to ignore that and move on.
Yeah.
So this is just like the NUC that you knew before, except instead of Ivy Bridge based, it is now Haswell based. It's very similar size, 4-inch by 4-inch motherboard, a little bit bigger case. It's a little bit shorter, a little bit lower on the Z height. So this height here is just a tiny bit lower. But obviously you have a faster processor, faster integrated graphics, and the connectivity has changed quite a bit as well. You have two front USB 3.0 ports. You have a 3.5 millimeter jack that is headphone and audio. You have an IR receiver here, although no IR remote is really included with it. On the back, you have two more USB 3.0 ports, a gigabit Ethernet, a mini HDMI, and a mini DisplayPort connection. And this is ventilation for the fan for the processor heatsink. What you'll notice is gone is Thunderbolt. There were two models last time, one with Thunderbolt, one with dual HDMI. The Thunderbolt option is apparently gone. They're trying to cut costs, even though it doesn't really bring down the price much. My guess is not a lot of people who are using NUCs are using Thunderbolt. Mini DisplayPort connections, maybe, that allows you to adapt it to DVI or whatever it is else you want to adapt it to. But that's kind of like, those are the major changes. This time around, Intel provided parts to kind of put it together and get going, because you do buy it as a bare bones system. It does require DDR3L memory. This is a 4250U, so this is the ultra low voltage Haswell part. So you do have to get the low voltage memory. Originally, when I wrote the article, I just thought it was a nice bonus. They corrected me and said it actually won't post without DDR3L memory in there. They also supplied one of the Intel SSD 530 series 180 gig eSATA drives right here, which was pretty damn fast. And 180 gigs, more than enough capacity for our uses. And then a wireless card, which you may or may not need depending on if you're going to utilize that gigabit Ethernet port. This is the 7260HMW, which is actually 802.11ac and Bluetooth in this little adapter. Getting in it and installing it is just like the previous NUC. It's a very tiny, I don't know, what does this compare in size to the Mac Mini? Is this smaller than that yet? Okay, it's flatter and a little bit wider. So it's comparable in kind of idea of size, right? So it's a pretty interesting little product. Now, one thing that you might notice, where's it at? Here we go. In this shot here, there's a SATA port. There's a standard SATA port on here, and the power connector is, I think, under here. And it's actually a SATA, it's a male SATA port. So you'd have to have a female cable in order to power it. It doesn't make much sense in this chassis design to have a...
Wouldn't you have to like drill a blowhole?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense to have it in this design, but what Intel wants is for other vendors to adopt this form factor and do more interesting things with it. So maybe there's another case that supports an optical drive or lets you put a 2.5-inch drive or something like that in there. And you have, or a 1 terabyte drive. So now you have spinning disk storage in addition to the eSATA port for an SSD, right? So they just kind of included it there for a little bit more flexibility. For this testing configuration, it obviously doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if we scroll down here, you can see we did take the heatsink off, and here is our Haswell CPU and then the I/O controller on the same substrate there. Performance, this pretty much spells it all out right here. If this Core i5 4250U, which is not a coincidence, it's the same processor that is in the Haswell NUC. This tested result here is actually from Ken's new Haswell MacBook Air. So it basically has identical processor performance to the MacBook Air in the NUC. You can see that in some of our Cinebench test results. Again, like not just kind of identical, but like actually like all the way identical. What's kind of interesting to see though is how this NUC compares to something like Kabini, an older Ivy Bridge part, and then these two parts down here at the bottom, the Core i3-2105 and the A10 5800K, are actually desktop parts. So this Trinity part is actually a 100-watt TDP processor, while the 4250U is a 15-watt or 17-watt TDP. So it's faster single-threaded performance, but when you get to multi-threaded, it's definitely slower, but you're talking Trinity being 30% faster for that I don't know, what is that, more than six-fold increase in TDP and power usage there. Gives you a little idea of what Haswell is capable of. So graphics performance, it's, Trinity does definitely beat it in that area. But again, you're talking about 100 watt TDP versus a 15 watt TDP. Still pretty good. You might be able to do some basic 1080p, 720p Steam gaming on it. I put a link in the article to the graphics benchmarks we did on the Haswell Nook, so you can get an idea of, there's some more, the Haswell MacBook Air that we did a review of that has more game tests in it. The storage, we're not reviewing it. I know Alan's going to work on a review of the SSD, the Intel 530 series, but I did run a quick ADO test on it, and we got 545 megabytes read, 522 megabytes per second write speeds. It's probably pretty good for a system of this size.
Pretty good, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
It's basically SandForce SSD performance.
Yeah. And
it's good.
And it's great. It's 180 gig, so if you have to do anything that storage intense, you have that capability. Power consumption is nice. At idle, 8.9 watts. That is whole system, including USB, Ethernet, display connectivity, but not display power, obviously. And then you can see the two different load metrics there. Cinebench CPU only load 22 watts and graphics load 29 watts total. Now, pricing is kind of where it gets messy for the Intel Nook. It's kind of an expensive build. I think most people would consider it that way. So the bare bones system itself is $360. The memory is 8 gigs of memory. 2 4-gigabyte DIMMs is only $65. The 180 gig 530 series SSD is retailed at $199, and then the Intel wireless controller is $35 for a total of $659. Now it's $600. Go ahead.
That is steep for the SSD, but not most people are not going to put that much storage in something like this, right? Because you're just streaming stuff.
Yeah. So my kind of theory was like you could take $70 to $100 off of this price if you go with like a 120 gig SSD. Like I think Mushkin and some other companies are selling the eSATA SSDs still. The Intel 18530 is kind of like the high end of the eSATA world. And if you're not super concerned about performance or capacity, you can save a lot of money in that area. You're not really going to save much more money on the wireless or memory areas, right? $65 for 8 gigs is a ton of memory for this device for not a lot of money. If you want to make it like $50 or $40, you can maybe take it down to 4 gigs and get away with it. But at $659, for somebody who's actually looking for a computer, not a computer for a specific location or specific usage scenario, it probably still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? So you can get an AMD Trinity APU complete rig, mini ITX, or I'm sorry, not mini ITX, micro ATX based setup for about $470. And this is built on the PC Part Picker site. That's processor, motherboard, memory, SSD. The processor comes with a cooler, the case, and power supply, right? So you're talking about $460 to $470 for something like that. So if you're just trying to build a computer and you either don't really care about the novelty of having this super tiny thing, or you don't have a particular place where it's going to be useful to mount to the back of a monitor or hide in a home theater stack or something like that, then it still kind of makes sense to go with another form factor, that's going to be a little bit bigger but save you some money and maybe get you some extra performance out at the same time. So what do you guys think? Is this this is their second generation of putting these out? Do you think this is something that's going to have legs, or is it more of like a demonstration of technology?
Does Zotac do it better?
I would say not. So Zotac they use AMD. They have used Intel too, but they have a lot more options. They have more options, and they will probably be less expensive than this. But in terms of getting the most technology in there first, this is the first one that's going to have Haswell in it. I don't know how long it's going to take Zotac to get like a Haswell U part in there. I don't know. Yeah, the Gigabyte Bricks is still a thing, right? That's going to have Haswell. They actually have one with Haswell Iris Pro graphics coming out very soon too.
I think we'll end up having a bit more to say about it when we get to our news stories. I think it's going to tie in a bit later.
Maybe.
Whatever. Hey, it's still cheaper than the Xi3.
True.
It is.
You don't want to pay $1,000 for that?
No.
But it's got a nice
Even with it
box.
comes with a T-shirt.
All right, let's move on. Be Quiet is a
Okay.
brand of power supply.
Lee is like the stealth reviewer that you have. All of a sudden, stuff just pops up on the site from Lee.
Productivity.
I am
And
unaware
German
of this
efficiency in this
concept.
case.
And German efficiency in this place. Germany is the
Be
number
quiet.
one manufacturer for power supplies. An odd name for the U.S. market, but if that's their goal is to create silent devices, then I guess it kind of makes sense. So Lee reviewed the Be Quiet Pure Power L8 700 watt power supply. I'm curious if it was quiet. Exceptionally quiet operation. 120 millimeter silent wings fan.
It just listens for noise in the room, and when somebody starts talking, it just goes, shh, be quiet.
Shut up. That's really annoying. Shut up, power supply. You don't
How
own me.
how did they spell wings? WINGZ?
No. Just the
That's too
regular,
bad.
the correct
No, this is a
wings.
lower end part, Josh. It doesn't have the expensive letters.
This power supply is going to sell for $99, available in North America by the end of this month. The end of September, which would be now. And looks like it was for sale at NCIX already, too. So he does say, as a strength, a virtually silent operation up to mid-power levels. Good efficiency with the 80-plus bronze. Combined 12-volt outputs can deliver 53 amps.
$100.
Is that not enough amps? Probably not enough amps. Alan,
There's never enough
Alan
amps.
fell asleep.
We've, I tried.
Can you
to,
arc weld with it?
There you go.
I tried to do some arc welding, and the only thing I did is I set the doghouse on fire.
But wait a minute. Arc welding is kind of loud, so, you know.
If anyone's still playing bingo,
Weaknesses: AC ripple on DC outputs a little higher than we would like to see, and a modest 3-year warranty. Still got a silver award. If you're interested in a potentially very quiet 700 watt power supply, check out that review from Lee.
And it is only $100.
And it is only $100. That's definitely worth noting.
That's not horrific.
No. Another review. We don't have Morion with this, but he did post an article this week, the MSI Z87 XPOWER motherboard review, the all-new Z87 XPOWER motherboard. Still miss that guy. Still miss that guy. It's black and yellow. Black and yellow.
Like the song. Look at how many SATA ports that thing has.
It has some SATA ports. It has some PCI Express ports, slots as well.
Well, it looks like it's got some coolers.
It does have some coolers.
Hey, look at those RAM slots.
Woo! You can't hardly see them because it's black on black.
That's
Jokes. Thank you.
Yeah,
So it has some interesting features. This is kind of like their super high end flagship part. One of the things that it does is it has the
SATA ports?
It does do SATA ports. It also has PCI Express slots that there's like a primary that you use. So this, where's he got a picture of it here? So this slot right here, PCIe 2, is actually the one you use if you have a single graphics card that you're running, right? And it will get a full by 16 bandwidth. Now, if you want to start using SLI, up to 4-way quad SLI or Crossfire, you use the top one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. So that gives you the even spacing you need to fit 4 graphics cards on a motherboard, and then it gives you the flexibility to have, one full by 16 slot if you're really particular about making sure your GPU gets all the bandwidth available to it, or if you're going to start going SLI by 8s all the way around. So that's actually pretty cool. You can see on the back here it has a ton of USB 3.0 ports, 8 of them on the back. It has support for a Qualcomm Killer E2205 Gig E networking port. Jeremy's favorite.
Yay.
Killer.
802.11n Wi-Fi from Intel are added right here through this little plug-in adapter
Wait, where's the networking port?
right here.
Where?
Right here.
What about the plug-in networking port?
The killer one is yellow.
Yeah, right here.
No, that's
Or
not. That's
maybe
not
it's
network.
gold.
That's Thunderbolt.
No. This is.
It looks goofy.
That's.
Yes, it does.
It's Ethernet.
That's lies.
It's-
Ethernet doesn't come in yellow.
It's killer, so it's yellow. Think about it.
Does this
fine.
one even have Thunderbolt?
No.
I don't know that it does.
No Thunderbolt. It has dual HDMI and DisplayPort, and it has 8 USB 3.0 ports, and it has 802.11n Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and yellow networking. So think about it. It's awesome.
I don't understand. What is it? Runs away from packets?
It's yellow. Yeah.
You're yellow.
It has the kind of like separated out audio circuitry for what they call audio boost technology. That looks like an MSI logo that lights up. I don't know if he has a picture of it lit up, but that looks pretty awesome. And then it's got eSATA.
Ooh,
Because you got to have
MSATA.
that. And then there are, let's see.
Stickers?
2,
Lots of
4,
stickers?
6, 8, 12. 12. No, just 10.
You cannot count.
Just 10. 10 SATA 6 gigabit per second ports. 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. This is how I accidentally overpay you guys. I gotta go check back all that stuff.
Who has been overpaying
what?
me? I want to know this.
It's Look at all these buttons. OC Genie, power, plus minus, lightning bolt, reset.
Lightning bolt. Lightning bolt.
Lightning bolt. Lightning
Freeze.
bolt. It's a damn impressive motherboard. I would highly suggest you go check out this review. And as always, Maury includes let's attach a giant ass cooler. This is the cooler I was looking at. Oh, well, I'm glad
It's
I
a
didn't buy
GAC.
it. Wow,
Attach
Look
the
at that.
GAC.
look at that.
And that's an XLATX board too.
Yeah, I was gonna put 2 of those on a motherboard.
Yes,
Oh.
you were.
Ooh, glad I went the other direction. Okay.
I was picturing to see if you could actually make like a sandwich, where it would
It's
just
just
be
like one big
long
line.
tunnel.
Yeah. The second one wouldn't like it that much. So yeah, you can see it comes with this. You could swap it out for that 7260 802.11 AC adapter if you wanted to for only $35. That's actually not a bad
That's
idea.
not a bad price.
Not a bad idea. Oh,
Look at that. Look at that thing that you get.
door hanger thing.
No, not the door hangers.
Oh.
Up above.
Oh wow.
See, you can have a shield and you can
With
deflect
no-
lightning bolts
With
it.
no way to get the scale of that, I'm imagining I'm holding that on my arm to defend my house from the horde of oncoming zombies. It's probably very small though. And a mouse pad. So there's all kinds of stuff in here. I'm not going to run through it. Look at here, I will show you the BIOS.
Oh god, no, not the BIOS.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wear sunglasses when you get to this part of the review.
Oh yeah. Look at that.
Vampires explode when they see that BIOS.
Look at that. I like it.
That's not bad.
I'm okay with
I've
that.
seen worse.
I've
I
seen.
mean, first
way
generation
worse.
Gigabyte 3D BIOS was, god awful and
Blue
ugly.
and purple. You guys like it, right?
I deal with
my
it.
eyes.
I deal with it.
And I don't think we have any. He's got a second part coming up in the review here. So, weaknesses: he does not like the CMOS battery placement. I don't think there has been a review yet where Maury has enjoyed the CMOS battery placement on a motherboard.
Who cares about CMOS battery? The Maury.
Maury does. Maury
Yeah.
does. Somebody's got to care.
You know
about
they're
these
good
little
for
things.
10 years.
Well, how long do you plan on keeping a $450 motherboard?
Of all the components that
Of
your
9
old
years.
motherboards had, there's still one thing that's compatible with the new ones.
Of all people that would keep a motherboard for 10 years, I would have guessed it would have been Allyn.
He has, hasn't he?
Yeah.
That 920 is like 10 years old.
There actually has been some times where I've had
No.
to pop the battery out to repair, and let's just say it's behind a video card, and that kind of doesn't work so well.
Let's just say you accidentally scratch a bunch of traces on the board as you try to stab at it with a screwdriver.
Yeah, I tried to remove
I've never done that.
a BIOS battery once, and sure enough, I destroyed the clip. And so, yes, I had to solder that frickin' thing in place.
That's nice. I like that. That's good stuff. All right, let's move on.
Hey,
We've got a lot.
Then I thermited it.
All right, let's talk about an interesting topic this week.
No.
All right, moving on to AMD exposes Mantle,
Mantle.
a new hardware level API. I don't know how much about this you talked last week.
None.
None.
Yes.
Awesome.
So talk to us about it, Ryan. You were there.
So I'll give you. Actually, I'm going to give you my quick spiel on what I think it is. You correct me, and then we'll discuss whether or not
Wrong.
we think it's bad or good. So, you remember Glide,
Well, yes, I.
3DFX Glide?
Do you remember
Oh,
thanks
not
for
Astra?
clarifying.
Redline?
I do not remember Redline.
Or S3 Metal?
Nope. If I couldn't play GL Quake with it, I wasn't interested, as it turned out.
You guys
VGL?
remember Wicked GL?
Yes,
Well,
I
that's
do.
different, but I'm talking Verite. Remember them?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So at the GPU 14 event, which was in Hawaii, AMD kind of showed. They talked a little bit about Hawaii, the graphics chip in the card, the 290X. They talked about that, right? I didn't just say something I wasn't supposed And
Get
then
it.
the 280X, 270X, 260X, and whatever else they talked about.
Actually, the weird part was in the demonstration they talked about the 290X, but not the 290.
Oh,
So when I put up my post, people were like, "I heard something about 290." And I'm like, I did later.
I don't remember that. It's not important anymore. It's out there. So afterwards, they brought up. They didn't bring up. They had a video of Johan Anderson, who is the lead developer at DICE, who does the Frostbite engine, which you may have heard of before in Battlefield 3 and the upcoming Battlefield 4 or any EA game going forward forever. To talk about a project that he was very excited to work with AMD on, and this was Mantle. Mantle is an attempt to allow developers to have closer access to the hardware of Radeon GPUs, in particular GCN architectures and going forward, and bypassing things like OpenGL and DirectX, the benefits of which will enable you to have better performance as game engines can more readily access the hardware as opposed to having to go through multiple software layers. Is that correct, Josh?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to
further expound?
maybe communicate why that might be good or bad?
Okay. Back in the old days, before OpenGL and Direct3D were really viable platforms to develop games for, guys like 3DFX had Glide, Rendition had Redline, there was S3 had Metal, ATI Rage had something else I can't remember offhand, but these were essentially APIs that were very, very low level that you put an input in and it had something in hardware that it directly activated. Instead of what we have with Direct3D, where you have the program talking to Direct3D, which then talks to the driver, which then talks to the hardware abstraction layer, and then finally gets to the hardware that they're trying to do. And doing that makes things very general, but it takes away a lot of performance due to inefficiencies. You can't directly program things like memory addresses. Certain functions you can do natively through API, which when you do it through Direct3D, it has several different layers that you have to go through. I mean, that's a very simplistic way of speaking about it, but it's less efficient to do something like OpenGL and Direct3D, because I know, for instance, they talk about draw calls. Mm-hmm. A API like Mantle, which is a low level, can have 9 times the amount of draw calls with the same amount of processing power as Direct3D could do with just 1x times. So it's more efficient in several aspects, and you should get a performance bump and increase. Mm-hmm. The downsides to this is you're still looking at the programming of the engine and what it's asking the hardware to do. So essentially, you're shifting the bottleneck away from kind of the APIs, so you don't have the overhead of Direct3D. But if you have a scene that is very shader intensive, lots of lighting, you want to have lots of anti-aliasing, all kinds of stuff that could really impact performance, at the shader level, then draw calls are not nearly as important. Yes, it's more efficient getting the information there, the data there, and the commands, but there may still be instances where your bottleneck is going to be elsewhere. So Mantle is interesting. A lot of people are interested in it. It got a lot of hype around it. We don't know how well it works, and we won't know until December when Battlefield 4 comes out with its native Mantle version, that if you have an AMD GCN card, then of course everybody's going to be benchmarking the living crap out of this and seeing where the bottleneck really is. Does Mantle really help performance? And theoretically, yes, it's going to help performance. But if you're running a single card triple screen, you may not necessarily see that performance increase. You may get a couple of extra frames per second, but it might not be the night and day that some people are hoping. But again, this is information that once we actually have software in hand and can see how well it does, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, because it's important to reiterate that if you have 9 times the draw calls, does not mean you're getting 9 times the frame rate at all.
That's correct, because again, like I said, you've still got to draw the pixels.
Right.
You could be shader bound in certain operations. It's not a panacea. I love saying that word because it makes me sound smart.
It's a good SAT word.
Which is why I say it a lot.
That makes you sound stupid.
By the way, what did they exactly mean by having 9 times the draw calls? Did they mean that each draw call has 1/9 the latency?
Well, no. You can, say a scene requires 100 draw calls.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess you could say it does affect latency. So all the draw calls go through there.
That's essentially a CPU bottleneck that is being removed.
Yeah,
right?
because all the DirectX layer it's going to be all CPU. It has nothing to do with the GPU,
right?
Since that controls all the memory operations and tells you, hey, draw these triangles.
I found the discussions that I had with AMD and other media there at the event, kind of after it, very lopsided, I guess I would say. There are some people that thought this was going to change the world, and there were other people that thought, we've seen this before, it can't be successful because NVIDIA will never support it, and they're the dominant. They're 65% of the desktop market share, 62% of the desktop market share as of last quarter. I think what makes this discussion very interesting is the inclusion of the fact that AMD has all these console wins, right? So Xbox One and PS4 are using GCN-based architecture, and in theory could support API like a Mantle. Now, I was told very specifically by some AMD people that that the consoles don't run Mantle as Mantle exists on the PC. That they are different.
Is correct, because PS4 is still OpenGL based, so they've got that API layer over top of it, while Microsoft, of course, has
DirectX.
Direct3D. Yeah, DirectX.
But I would assume a game developer that could use an alternative API if the hardware vendor supported it, but maybe not. I don't really know the logistics or that the requirements of these game developers and what are placed upon them by Microsoft and Sony. So the mindset of, well, this is going to be perfect for AMD because now game developers that are already coding for consoles, they can just drag and drop this onto Mantle on the PC is not correct. It's not a drag optimized for Xbox One, drag to PC, Mantle makes it all run, 30% faster or something.
And as an aside, John Carmack actually did comment upon this, and what he essentially said is that Mantle is not in PS4, it's not in Xbox, and in fact, those two companies, Sony and Microsoft, could be very opposed to Mantle.
Because it evens the playing field and they have no discernible advantage one way or the other.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things that he talks about, but essentially, having on the PC a faster, more efficient experience in development, Microsoft does not particularly want that. Sony does not particularly want that. They want all the traffic to come to them.
Right. You were going to say something, Scott?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, speaking the obvious, this might actually explain why NVIDIA just could not outbid AMD. It's possible that AMD was like, our money's going to be made in Mantle, so let's just bid as low as we can. Secondly, as well, there is a little bit of crossover between DirectX code and Mantle code because the shading language, which is the dominant part of a lot of coding.
Well, Mantle is compliant with HLSL. Yeah.
So it is not GSLSL, so it's not going to be compliant with PS4 code. But if they write a shader for Xbox 360, not the actual API calls, but the actual shader script itself, it would be compatible.
Interesting. So, as Josh said, the first example we'll get of this will be with the Battlefield 4 update coming in December. And we'll be able to, in some fashion or another, see a difference, let's run it on the AMD hardware under Mantle. Let's run it on AMD hardware under DX11. Let's run it under NVIDIA hardware under DX11. An interesting side topic is we don't really know yet how we're testing performance in Mantle, because all of the performance testing metrics we use, whether it be the capture-based software that we use or Fraps, all connect into DirectX in order to measure performance. So another hurdle for us to
So how do you
Unless-
test OpenGL games? Do you?
We cannot test OpenGL with the overlay.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Now, we can write an overlay for it. It's just there aren't a lot of OpenGL games yet, or maybe ever on the Windows, that will, require using that to test. So
You have a slim chance if because I don't know how your thing is programmed. I've never seen the code. If it's a shader effect, it's possible you might be able to inject it some way.
it
and if that's the
injects
case,
just
we're
like
fine.
Fraps does. So it's not as easy now. So what the last thing I'll say on Mantle is AMD has expressed, they told everybody they're going to talk about more about Mantle, what it means, and what software developers are doing with it at the AMD Developers Conference that they're having in San Jose in November. So we'll have, I'm sure more stuff will leak out about it between now and then, but we'll hear a lot more about it then at that particular point. Scott, you published a video and an article or something about Perpetual Motion Engine. I don't know, because are we millionaires yet? Because
No, you're not.
All right, moving on.
Because Ken hasn't released his hardware switcher yet.
Powered
Get
by
on
the
that.
Perpetual Motion Engine. This is perfect. This is going to be great. This is going to be fantastic.
Synergy, the word that scares the most employees, according to Dilbert. But anyway, going from one extreme to another, Mantle is about getting as few layers in between you and your content as possible. This one
Which is
has
like
quite a bit of
polypropylene
overhead.
condoms.
No.
Look at that guy.
So basically, what happens is going back again to before Glide and all that sort of stuff. Games used to be programmed in software because that was all they can really do. And what we did was take the typical algorithms, the strict math that produces the colors on the screen, and we would have the CPU, loop through every pixel that it displays, which is probably 320 by 240, and run a simple calculation, have that be the color, move forward, frame, right? That kind of went to the wayside when people were like, well, we want more pixels. We want more data so we can put it on screen, higher resolution, so on and so forth. And CPUs are just not able to keep up. I mean, they have a exponential curve, but that still takes some time.
Right.
So instead, they developed graphics hardware, which is optimized for scanline rendering on triangles, so on and so forth, and is controlled now by a bunch of APIs, DirectX and OpenGL, where you give it geometry, it gives you an image. But the math hasn't changed. The math still exists. So my thought is that now that GPUs are going towards general purpose computation, and I mean, even companies like Epic Games, Tim Sweeney wanted to try it. He said that Unreal Engine 4, this is back in 2008, he said to Unreal Engine 4, the next Unreal Engine, would be programmed entirely in GPU and either C++ or CUDA, which he said C++ because C++ AMP or anything didn't exist back then. It was just CUDA and CUDA, right? So my thought was, well, if we go to strict math, then there's a bunch of interesting things that happen. Let's try making a software rendering engine that batches off big calculations or big groups of calculations to the GPU. And one platform that allows that is actually, yes, that was the motto of the project. Challenge accepted. It was a bit rushed because I was actually I'm going to be going to a summit tomorrow, and I wanted to get it out before then. But there's a lot of interesting things that can happen now that you're not concerned about doing things the DirectX OpenGL way. The obvious one is ray tracing or ray casting. So you throw a ray to see what your pixel lands on, loop one per pixel, and then run the calculation or run your color on that object or texture point or whatever you want to have it hit. Then you can do ray tracing where it actually balances and see if it hits a light and so on and so forth. You can do scanline again. You can do various things. You can even do combinations of them. And there's a bunch of interesting things that I thought of that could come up. Like, for example, you can now choose what device you want to use as a computer. So if you want to have your integrated graphics join in on rendering, doing something that's comparable to its performance, you can do it. There's no reason why you can't. As a matter of fact, I kind of envision having games where you have a drop-down menu and it'd be like, so physics, I want this to do with physics, I want this to do AI, and you can have 3 video cards all mismatched because, again, there's no SLI or crossfire. It's just, this is a computing device.
Does it use Lucid Logics?
It's even beyond Lucid Logics. It's just a matter of, I have a bunch of computers. They have this performance. I can use them individually for different tasks.
It's all just math.
Because it's just math, right? And the final thing I kind of came up with was, well, since this API is coming into Firefox very soon, or supposedly it's been merged in Mozilla Central, and there's some tests for it by Samsung on WebKit / Google Chrome, I figured, hey, why not allow web browsers to do it? So
So what was the video, the demonstration showing? Just an implementation of that?
Yeah, it was kind of the demo I did for Mozilla. Basically, what was a surprise for them is because they're all web developers. I was kind of sandbagging them a little bit. I was kind of being like, so look at this cool software engineering technology, blah, 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 and have them be like, okay, yeah, good native code, whatever, and then press F11, Firefox pops down, and they realize it was a web app all along.
And this is tomorrow you leave for that?
This is tomorrow I leave for that. But I actually already did demo a couple of weeks ago. It's just,
okay. All right. Very cool.
But the concept is that when we're running in just math, sure, we're going to have a little bit of overhead, but there's a bunch of interesting things that we can do, like choose our own algorithms for whatever suits the task. Use multiple video cards, even of different vendors, because it doesn't matter. You can even have your rendering done on the CPU. If you have a fast enough CPU, you won't have a fast enough CPU, but you could have a fast enough CPU. If you want to use, a supercomputer with a bunch of CPUs to do your graphics processing and it has OpenGL driver, great, or OpenCL driver, great. It's just kind of a new way of looking at it by being the absolute oldest way of looking at it possible and removing all of the assumptions we've kind of layered on top of one another for the last decades. Just get rid of them and see what we can go by taking from scratch again.
Neat.
So you're creating a new paradigm, right?
For more synergistic communication.
Yes.
I'm sure that's what the management team will say, if there's a management team ever.
Neat.
Ken is the management team.
Oh, God.
Because he has the buttons.
He does.
What
He
would
controls
help
the
us?
buttons. He manages the things.
All right. So we're going to switch over to some news items here now. But before we do that, I want to tell everybody that if you go to pcper.com/podcast right now, not right now if you're listening live, but right now, tomorrow, which is today if you're listening to it recorded. If you go to pcper.com/podcast, there'll be a post with this episode number, which is what, 271? There'll be a form at the bottom of it. All you have to do is put in your name, your email address, and this secret word. What was the word?
Blunt force trauma.
No, I think we're going to go with Perpetual. Perpetual? That's our secret code word, is Perpetual. I don't know. That was
You
the
don't
last
sound sure of that.
It is now because I said it. It's the secret code word is Perpetual. So if you put in your name, your email address, and the word Perpetual, spell it correctly.
I'm with Undermined. Lotion engine. Undermined. Me and
Every
Undermined.
time you
Lotion
say it,
engine.
it'll go faster.
Perpetual or Lotion Engine. Either one will now work. And we will pick a winner randomly to be sent a key for Batman Arkham Origins. That's not out yet, is it? I don't think it's out yet.
No.
Soon, I think.
Well, we'll have a key for you. You won't be able to play it until it's out. Don't get too excited. But you'll be able to get a key. And that is Perpetual Lotion Engine. Make that one word. And it's now got really weird. I don't know what else to say. And we want to thank our friends at NVIDIA. They handed us a handful of these keys to give out to you guys. I guess in promotion of their 4K, what's that called? The Battle Box promotion that they're working on. So if you want to buy a multi-Titan gaming system, you can do that. And I'll throw in a copy of Batman with it. I guess that'll make it all better. So Batman Arkham Origins keys. That's all you got to do is Perpetual Lotion Machine.
And if you type that in, you earn it.
If that doesn't get all of the sponsors to sign up for this podcast, look, we can come up with creative contests for how they can win products. I don't know what else we can do.
Next week, sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. No.
And now we know what the name of Puget Sound Computer's next line is going to be.
The Perpetual Lotion Machine.
Yes.
Yep. So thanks again, NVIDIA, for that. And we'll be doing this for the next couple of weeks. Next couple of podcasts, we'll give out a copy of Batman Arkham Origins. So let's talk about news. So we already talked about, you guys talked about last week, a couple of different Valve announcements. This one is the Steam controller, and it's that weird looking thing. So it's a controller with no thumbsticks. Instead of thumbsticks, there are touchpads. And then is that a touch screen in the middle? Or is that just a screen? It is a touch screen. And then on the back, there's like more buttons.
Yep.
And stuff. We don't have a picture of the back here. But the buttons are oddly placed. They're not where you would think buttons on a controller would normally be. It's a totally, I don't know, it messed with my mind when I looked at it.
Yeah, the first time I saw it, it looked like a bug face.
Yeah, it just looks odd. But I love the idea. Essentially what Valve says they tried to do with this was emulate mouse and keyboard control on a controller instead of emulating controller controls to a PC game.
Yeah, but Lenovo and all the rest of the notebook manufacturers tell me they're doing that with their touchpads too.
Yeah, but they're dumb.
Yes.
Right. But do they have haptic response?
They might claim they do.
So I don't know what to think about this. I don't think anybody really does yet until you actually get to use it. There have been reports of people using it and say it's really good, but I don't know. I think we need the masses to get a hold of this. I think the idea of absolute position control on it as opposed to relative position control, where a traditional controller thumbstick, you have to kind of gauge how much motion is happening with the spring in the controller versus with the touchpad. You know exactly how far your finger is moving.
It's not even just that. You have to actually time it. Your brain has to consciously think, release it in 3, 2, okay, good, right?
With the controller, you mean?
With the thumbstick, right?
Right.
With the trackpad, I mean, you could do that too. Both those trackpads have clicks, so again, I don't know how it's designed, but it's possible that you could have it emulate joystick when you press down, and when you release, it'll act as a thumb pad, so you can
right,
do a little bit of sniping and then go to typical joystick mode by pressing down a little harder.
So Scott wrote up the story on the site, so we know what his thoughts on it. I'm curious, Jeremy or Allyn or Josh, not all at the same time. What do you think when you look at something like this?
Joysticks are hard.
But you of all people.
Sorry, I've always been a fan of joysticks.
What? You of all people hate controllers. Like you would never play a PC game with a controller, right?
God no, because they hurt my hands.
Now what about this? What about something like
But a flight
this?
sim,
Okay.
you don't want to do that with a mouse. And I've played with mice trying to do like free space, and it's not fun. You essentially need a second person. One person does with the mouse this way to keep it moving, while somebody else is steering in another direction. So for this, I'm looking at it and going, yeah, it looks slightly different in that it's got no sticky outy bits, but that's a game controller. I don't like game controllers.
But wait, this isn't going to be like Dead Space if you were playing it on that, because this is going to be absolute position. It's not going to work like a mouse where you'd have to keep picking your finger up and dragging it.
It's going to work like a joystick.
Yeah,
well,
it would work like
where
a
your thumb
joystick.
is absolute. It will send it to the developer. The developer can then say, where it first touches, that's start. Where it ends, that's end. Right? So
I think they're probably going to just make it like the center is the center, and like, you know what I mean?
But I mean,
to work like a
there's
game
no reason
controller.
Finger
why
off
they
of
would
it. Does
tell
it center itself
developers
again,
not
or does
to
it
use it in that way.
remember the last position you were in?
I think it depends on the game, actually.
Yeah, it would.
Right?
Definitely.
But I think that they would be getting absolute X and Y values off of this thing, and that would just go into the game as whatever. So if you wanted it to be steering, for example, it would just track exactly where your thumb was on this thing, center, left, or right. So if you did pick it up from the right side and put it on the left, well, the car would go from steering to the right to steering to the left. See what I mean?
But roll, pitch, and yaw. How the hell are you going to do that on this thing without really sort of mangling an interface to try and get it to feel like you're steering?
One example is if you press down, then wherever it is would be like you tilted the joystick that far.
It would pitch it. It would work exactly the same way as if it was regular game controller, regular
Which I hate
sticks.
because they feel wrong to me.
But this is different, Jeremy.
I know it can
have to
function
like
as a
it.
speaker.
What I didn't tell you is that Half-Life 3 is going to be embedded in every controller.
Damn it!
I forgot to
I will
that.
tell you what would be very weird for me is if I'm playing like a driving game. Actually, Josh can probably back me up on this. If you're playing a driving game on this guy, you're not paying so much attention to where your thumb is, like center, left, or right. You're paying attention to how much force you're applying to it. So in other words, that's because it's spring loaded, right? There's a spring working against you. Whereas on this thing, it's not. You're not going to have that. It's going to be like where your finger happens to be laying on the thing.
They do say that the feedback would give you, depending on how the developer does it, some sense of where you are. Like they say, they can even put an audio waveform to use it as a speaker. So that's the amount of control they give you.
So you could actually yell at it and steer if you wanted.
Yeah.
Turn left!
Go left!
I just don't get,
That's what I'm planning on doing with the Kinect.
I actually do have a something else to say about the Steam machines, because that wasn't on last week.
Oh yeah, what's that?
To me, they actually seem, because I mean, everyone's talking about how they're going to take market share from Windows or whatever. I really don't see that. Every time they announce something, it always seems more and more like they want to go in the direction of media center extenders. It seems to me like they're trying to have PCs kind of expand the market of what now is dominated by Roku boxes.
Kind of like what the Xbox One wants to do, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
basically they're going to be kind of overlapping quite a bit, but I really don't see them as trying to be big dedicated gaming hardware. I see, like, it wouldn't surprise me if the first couple waves of them would be actually fairly cheap, give or take, hardware, not necessarily price tag, but cheap hardware, and they intend you to use game streaming a lot. It just seems to me like they're going to go from the media center extender perspective and have PCs take that spot.
Yeah, but did you know that the Half-Life 3 engine is based on the Perpetual Lotion engine?
True
story.
That. Yeah.
Have you seen that comic with the controller and Gabe?
Yeah.
Just found it and put it on the chat.
Well, no, not the Perpetual Lotion, but the
the other one that I just put on
the
the
other
chat.
one. Yes, with the I can feel the haptic control already. And Gabe's
Oh yeah,
there.
no, I'm not putting that one weirds me out. I'm not. No. I'm
Yeah, you don't
Not at
like
all.
that.
Nope, not a fan of that.
Come on,
Not a fan of that one.
Portal technology to the nth degree.
Speaking of technology to the nth degree, Josh, have you missed VIA?
Wait, Via?
VIA. Remember them?
No, we haven't talked to them.
VIA. So APC, I don't think it's the same company that is making the power backup devices. I'm not sure.
Company?
Nope.
They are apparently making a device that looks like this. It looks like a book, but it's actually this. It's a computer that looks like a book, powered by FireFox OS.
Hey, look, it's still got a VGA port. How quaint.
That's cute. And
There's actually two products. That's the Rock.
this is the Rock.
Paper, which is the book.
You can't stop
Paper
the
cover
rock.
rocks.
And the scissors hasn't come out yet.
This says
have
from
VGA.
behind.
It's all from behind.
Okay, so that's the Rock. This is the paper. Where's the scissors? It's down
Yeah.
here. No? All right. They are powered by the VIA ARM Cortex A9 at 800 megahertz. GPU built in 2D, 3D up to 720p. That's not very descriptive.
Exactly.
512 megs of memory, 4 gigs of NAND flash, expandable through micro SD, VGA rock only. Sorry, Josh. So VIA back in the game. Back in the game with an ARM processor and a computer that looks like a book.
So I wonder what happened to those nice people down in Texas developing processors for VIA.
I don't like to think about those things anymore. It would be better if they would allow you to print whatever label you wanted on the spine of the book.
Why can't you?
Well, because you're drawing on it with a marker is not the same as having it like printed and etched in like a good hard copy book.
So buy a dust jacket.
I would have mine say Josh's Perpetual lotion machine, and I would
Engine, damn it, engine.
engine. Sorry, and I know no one would ever touch that book, so it would be safe as a computer in the bookshelf.
Yeah.
That's all I got about the APC thing. Now let's talk with Allyn real quick about a Western Digital product that launched today.
Yes.
I had several seconds of build-up where I gave you ample time to move that damn thing down from your head towards your mouth opening.
Well, he's playing with the kitty, if
Talk.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes. I was
Cat
distracted. No, so Western Digital has released a thing called the My Cloud. So like you've seen
Your
My
Cloud.
Book before, right? Little
Hey,
bookshelf
did you
looking
Photoshop
kinda-
the cat out of it?
Yeah, he did a really good job of that.
Nice.
No, that was in a different picture. Yeah, earlier we were trying to take a picture of this thing on my counter, and the cat just decided, yeah, I want to be in the picture. Anyway, so it's called a My Cloud instead of a My Book. It's similar to a My Cloud, has a hard drive in it, except it also has
Wait, you're similar
dual-
to a My Book?
Yeah, similar to a My Book.
Okay, you said similar to a My Cloud. That
Oh,
My
sorry.
Cloud is similar to a My Cloud. In fact,
Yes, exactly.
they're nearly identical.
Yes. So, except this one has a gigabit Ethernet instead of your USB
Media
connection
files
to get
is using the
data to your PC, which seems kind of cool. And it works. Okay, so it's kind of confusing to explain. It's sort of like Dropbox, but not quite the same. So this device you can access from other devices, mobile, not on your network, away from home, that sort of thing, similar to Dropbox. But it doesn't seem to have like this is a shared folder thing, and then that syncs across to whatever, like your laptop, for example, and just stay there,
Yep.
like how Dropbox would work. This one seems to just rely on the online connection to it. And I imagine for the mobile app, there's probably some form of caching going on, whereas if you just had, some PDF open, you could probably still reopen that same one, or however much data is cached. It probably works similar to Dropbox's app, right? But as I was reading everything on this, I was like, well, wait a minute, that's kind of bad, because then the stuff that's on that device, that would mean that for potentially a lot of that is your only copy of it, right? Because if it's just relying on you accessing it from remotely, right? So if people put a bunch of just one copy of stuff on that, now you have a single point of failure. That's the hard drive, but there is a solution. It's not syncing. It's more like everything gets backed up to something else. So you can set something they call a second copy or safe point of your My Cloud onto your home or office network. So in other words, some other system on your network at your house locally, you can just tell it, all right, this is my safe point, and then it will just automatically keep a sync going to that device. So instead of relying on all of your cloud synced across devices backups, for example, you're just relying on, here's everything, it's all on this other device. Now that means you have to have something somewhere else in your house that has that much storage on it.
Right.
So kind of a downside, especially if you're like the typical person is going to want to go, oh, I just want to buy the biggest whatever single unit I can, and that's where I want to put all my stuff. Of course, with most people realizing that most people will not, or tend to not, back everything up, unfortunately.
I do like one of the things I do like about it. I saw a demo of it when I was at IDF. Is the ability to anonymously share these files, like if you have stuff in a Dropbox public folder, where you can just send them a link to it, and they don't have to have a login or anything to access it. They can just access it right away.
Yeah.
Or you can give a specific user access to a specific folder on your My Cloud device, and then you can share files back and forth that way, which is actually kind of nice too. So if, Allyn and I are constantly sharing photos and images and files for articles, we can set up a folder.
Oh, they're
drop them back and
articles,
forth.
right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no,
Yeah, they're not
totally.
kitty pictures?
No. All articles. Articles and
Articles.
encrypted zip files of article data.
Yes.
But you can set up that, and then they set up a login through that so that they can access that information anywhere as well too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because you want your articles of clothing all in one spot.
Always. Yes. Yeah. So you just got that in a little bit ago, so there's gonna be a review of that relatively soon, I guess. And let's see, what's 2 terabyte model for $149, 3 terabyte for $179, 4 terabyte for $249.
Yeah, the pricing seems it's pretty good. It's in line with just typical external drive pricing, except it has much more functionality to it.
Yeah. Pretty neat. All right, it's time for hardware, software picks of the week. He says as he moves his soda across the table.
Allyn still hasn't picked his.
Well,
I just got to type
What do
it
you
in.
think it's going to be that Western Digital?
No.
no, that's
No?
cheating. Yeah,
I haven't really tested it out yet, so.
I haven't really tested this out yet, but I'm gonna.
I haven't tested anything.
So we'll
you
show
haven't tested that?
Well, I
I
did
don't know.
test
I
out
think
some
you've tested yours
Perpetual
before. Ryan.
lotion.
I think
and
you've
boy.
tested yours plenty of times before, Ryan.
So if you were at our QuakeCon workshop,
Hey, it's the Hardon.
Yes, exactly. or listened into it, you may have seen Jacob from EVGA get up on stage and announce a product called the Hadron.
Hadron, damn it. Hadron Collider.
Hadron.
Whatever.
So this is a mini ITX chassis from EVGA. It comes with a built-in 500 watt power supply. It is a 1U power supply. You can kind of see it there at the bottom. I've yet to test and really validate what the sound levels are like. That's kind of be the most important thing for me. But it's mini ITX. It's got this huge window on the side, which is actually pretty nice. What else? It's got support for a dual slot graphics card, as you would expect from a company like EVGA. And it's got a side load, or a slot load, side mounted. So this is the front of the case, and the optical drive, if you use it, is off to the side. Which
Is it Blu-ray?
It's not a drive at all. You bring your own drive. But
How does it fit in the form factor? Would it have to be a slot loader, or?
it is a slot loader. Yeah.
So otherwise, it's a slot load Blu-ray.
I love the fact, though, that it's not on the face.
In the Hardon.
Because that's one of my biggest things is I don't use optical drives. I think a lot of people don't use optical drives anymore. And I always think that optical drives ruin the appearance of a case.
The aesthetics, if you
Yes.
will.
I did.
Not always. I did see one
no,
toaster mod
always.
where they took an actual toaster and they had a PC crammed inside it, and the was a 2 slot DVD drive.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
So how do you load up your OS, if you know what I mean?
Thumb drive?
Nice.
Just slide it
Like
in there.
as if it were 2008, I guess. I use a thumb drive.
You know, I'm still in optical drives for most OS. Crazy.
Same here.
It's like way, way faster to install it through a USB drive. Even if it's USB 2, it's way faster.
And when you scratch the USB drive, it doesn't matter.
That's true. That's also a plus. And you can just make a copy of it. And I think you can actually, you don't need an optical drive to make the USB drives, which was one of the things that occurred with, like, I think Windows Vista. It's like you had to have an optical drive. Now you can just, if you have access to the ISO from TechNet or wherever, and you just load it on there. Microsoft even makes a tool to do it. So easy stuff. So that's my pick. We'll have a review up of this relatively soon as well. As soon as Ken gets done with all of his other crap and gets
Come on,
going.
Ken. Stop going for higher education and just work for Ryan for slave wages.
Below that, though.
Yes.
Below that.
So you're going to be paying for your own room and board.
Yes. All right, up next.
Yet another Kickstarter project for a very expensive toy, but 3D printers, a lot of people complain that what you make out of them is not very robust. A lot of the times you can't really use it in any sort of a way. Oh, don't start up the video. The guy's got a horrible voice for radio, TV, or anything. But it's a carbon fiber filament winder. So up to 4 foot long, up to 6 inches wide, you can make wound carbon filament stuff, which is ridiculously lightweight and incredibly strong. You want to print out your own bicycle? Not a problem. You want to print out a rocket engine? Not a problem.
All right,
you want to build your own 3D, quadricopter? This thing is bloody well going to do it for dirt cheap.
Can I point out this one thing? I hate this. This annoys the crap out of me. You see this image that they took from a Word document that has like the little yellow line under it?
Yeah.
God, just fix that.
And besides, they even spelled it right.
I
But
guess.
frankly, you are going to be dropping $1,300 if you pledge right now. It's probably going to be closer to $1,500 if you were going to do it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
The deal is that you're going to be saving, if you go through an entire spool, about $850 easy. And besides, you can make it anyways.
How is that defined? If I go through a spool, I'm saving money by what means?
Because if you were to try and buy carbon fiber tubing, it's not cheap.
Here,
Gotcha.
I'm putting into the chat Ken's first experiments with the carbon fiber and how well it actually achieved.
I'm not gonna.
Come on, it's
Perpetually
good.
loved, though. But so instead of $20 a foot, it's $4 a foot, more or less.
Damn it, Ken.
Typical Ken.
I know.
Jeez.
It was a lubrication.
It was. He did not use the perpetual motion lotion.
Nope. The perpetual motion lotion was not in effect.
Oh Lord.
Look at that carbon fiber.
Look at that carbon
But hey,
fiber.
Carbon fiber is fun. You can make a lot of things with it.
Can I make a
It's
car?
not the size of Storm. It's a motion lotion.
All right, now we're definitely moving on. That guy looks goofy. All right, moving on. Who's next?
I guess I am.
You.
Let me find this bottle of lotion.
It should be
around my desk.
Don't lie. It's
somewhere.
right next to your keyboard. I don't know why you're looking around the room like that.
I have a dispenser that's bolted to the side of my desk, so screw you
Actually,
guys.
it's underneath the keyboard.
Otherwise, it'd slide away.
Yeah. Anyway, $115 will get you an extreme enthusiast motherboard as long as you're willing to put an AMD FM2 or FM2 upcoming plus
Ooh,
CPU into it.
Bolton. Is that like
Michael Bolton? Yeah. It's got long hair on the chipset. So yeah, it's got 8 native SATA 6G ports. It's got the super duper audio. It's got plenty of space in between those slots for even triple slot coolers.
Yes.
It's got everything you could possibly need except a really, really fast CPU.
It's got an okay CPU.
Yeah, it's okay. But look at
That'll
those
be
SATA
fine.
connections.
It does have a lot of SATA connections, 6 of them.
That it does. Almost as much.
It does.
Okay, try 8.
Oh,
How many
I see,
does that
okay, there
sideboard
it is.
have?
There's a
10.
Okay.
Oh,
It
it's
has 8.
Ryan's counting problem again.
I don't know if you noticed this, but it also has 2 PCI slots.
Sweet.
Not
So those people.
it doesn't just have one. It has
It's got 2.
2 PCI slots.
And it's green.
Damn it, they could have put an ISA slot in there instead of the second PCI.
If only.
Oh,
64 would be going in there so fast. So fast.
Oops. Let's see. Where did I go here? Alan, do you have your thing in there? So to
You can't
speak?
feel it?
Here. All right, Alan, what's your pick?
Did it work? Did the link work?
I
Did you
got
get
it. It's right here.
Okay.
4 people
So
have
we've talked
bought this
about
in the last 24 hours.
We've talked about these cable things in the past. Actually, I got one here, Ken, for your little switching genius, whatever. All right, so these cables, right? We talked about them. I think I made it a pick I don't know, months and months ago.
Yep.
Right?
Sure.
However, things have changed since then.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so somebody, months and months ago, there was one of these cables, and it would power your 2.5-inch SSD or some other small form factor drive directly off of an eSATA port.
Right.
Right, which was kind of cool, right? And in eSATA ports, you have the pins on one side of the inside of the port, which I can't show on the camera because it's just too hard to get. But basically, inside the port or inside this connector, on the top row, there's SATA pins, 7 pins for basically the data, right? And then on the bottom of it, in the same place where a normal USB device would plug in, because remember these ports on like a laptop is a hybrid port, right? You can plug in USB or you can plug in eSATA, right? So it uses those same 4 pins and it draws its 5-volt power off of them, right?
Right.
Are you with me,
Yeah.
Kermie?
No, I'm here. I'm good. Yep.
All right. So the catch is you can only power lower power devices with your typical cable because
2.5
12 volts
drive.
is not there, right? You want to power a bigger drive, you need more voltage, right? Higher voltage for the 12-pin connector that would go
more gigawatts.
as part of the SATA connector is 12 volts as well as 5 volts, right?
Okay.
All right. So if you have a laptop that's much, much newer or a desktop with an eSATA port out the back, it may also have this. You notice that on the side there's something shiny. See that shiny thing in the middle on the side?
It's a hypodermic needle.
No. And then there's something shiny on the other side right in the middle.
Okay.
It's an extra pair of copper connectors that actually power the 12 volt. So this is sort of an unofficial add-on to the standard that's migrated and propagated
All right.
down through various things. But the 5 volts comes off of the center like the normal USB connector, but some devices can actually give you 12 volts on the edges of the connector.
Some being what?
Some being most likely desktops that have an eSATA port. But it is possible if that port supports power over the eSATA connector.
And I assume you
All
can
right.
tell at the port if there are connections on the sides.
You can look in there, but I'm not
Nah, just shove it
sure.
in really hard.
Yeah, okay, so just the connector, it's that's what's kind of hard. It's like you just have to try it to find out, really. It's either going to give you 12 volts or it's not, right? Because a
Story my
motherboard manufacturer might very well use the physical connector that has the pins on the side, but they might not supply 12 volts to it, for example, right? They just might not power those pins.
Right.
It's really just up to however the build is. That connector is called a EUHP connector,
Yeah, it
which
totally makes sense.
was it's a eSATA USB hybrid port, right? It's because it's the port that handles both of those at the same time.
I was pretty sure eSATA was dead.
It's still on a lot of things, and plenty of people use them to clone stuff over.
All right.
You know,
A lot of people.
because some of the cloning software won't, like, even the most. Here's an example. I just cloned over a hard drive for a buddy of mine's laptop the other day. A fairly recent, pretty high-end laptop with USB 3 ports on it. And the cloning software, which was also the most recent version of, I forget which one it was, a Kronos or Paragon or one of them, it had like a boot time environment that it comes up in order to actually do the cloning, because you can't really clone your OS hard drive while it's up and running, right? So it sort of reboots into this special environment to actually do the cloning process, and it wouldn't see the USB 3 connectors,
Weird.
right? So we were either stuck trying to clone a terabyte over USB 2, which would have been kind of crappy, or
Yeah.
we just use this and clone over at eSATA speeds because the laptop had an eSATA port, which really kicks the crap out of USB 2, to be honest.
Sure. Well,
Right.
yeah, USB 2 without a doubt. Yeah.
Yep. So sometimes you end up in those
And that's-
situations, and this thing, I mean, it's $6.
$6. Hard to
You
argue
know?
with that.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, maybe least, we'll see. Scott, what do you got?
Well, as you can tell from last week, my pick
That's
is
last
not
year.
USB hubs. Sorry if I'm a bit stuttering. I'm actually kind of hearing myself a little bit. It's not USB hubs because, well, I had some serious webcam problems, but seems to be better than it used to. I've actually got new internet.
All right.
Instead of having 6 over 0.63, so 630 kilobit up, I still have that. We're going to be deciding what to do with it later, but I now have been upgraded to 20 over 10. I used to pay $80 for the... Well, we used to pay $80 for the other one. This one we're paying, well, $50 for the 20 over 10 megabits connection.
That's not bad.
Yeah. I was thinking of doing like a cable and modem
dial-up.
thing about a year ago. I was looking into the prices for it to see it for the podcast, and it was about $200 a month. So I was like, this is not going to be worth going on the podcast every once in a while. But
No.
yeah, then the other company, Teksavvy, came in and resold that service for $50 a month. So I said, sure, sold.
Did you know that you could get dial-up service that includes 3 email addresses, no activation fees, and 5 megabytes of personal web space for $16.99 a month?
Oh, but I've got an old disc from when they guaranteed me free dial-up for life. Don't you guys?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got lots of those.
Yeah, no, as much as I hate these guys' ads, it is the only way that you can get decent uploads in Canada without paying for 100 megs down or more, which is not $50.
You don't like seeing the greasy hookup guy? No.
This guy right here? Is it this guy?
Hooking up is what I do
No,
best.
the previous...
Hey, babe, you want to see what 300 gigs looks like?
Yeah, that guy.
Johnny Hunk?
Yeah.
That's a lot of porn, honey.
He'd be good to have on the podcast, I think.
Christ.
Yeah.
All right. That we're gonna end the damn show now.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's been a while, guys. I've enjoyed being back. I think I'll even be here next week.
Lies. You're going to be in Canada.
No, that's the
It's
week after.
perpetual lotion.
Oh.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
Hold on, let's go back to Jeremy's really cool pick for a minute. So I toured a factory in Lincoln, Nebraska that makes rocket motors and rocket motor housings for the D5 Trident ballistic missile, and they're made by the same process.
Yes.
Just thought I'd throw that out
Just
there.
not 4 foot long by 6 inches wide.
No, we're talking like a huge drum, but still the same process with just like a little spindle of carbon fiber filament sitting on a spool
this is how it
and
works.
just unwinding. Yeah, it's the same
And
process.
then
It's
you
the same
can
thing.
shrink plastic epoxy over top of it to squeeze out all the bubbles and voids, and away you go.
Yep.
Wait, he's holding that large
He's holding it. He's holding it.
Thing with
Awesome.
This
one hand.
inanimate carbon rod.
They are so not going to look forward to me coming to their house.
I enjoy the let's
Look at the
stand in
astronaut.
front of these impressive photos.
Look at the astronaut behind him. It's hilarious.
Oh, if you want to totally ruin it, turn the audio up on him.
No, I don't.
Really should not be the spokesperson.
No, I don't want to do that now. All right, guys, that's gonna do
Here's
it.
Bob.
That's gonna do it for this week's episode. Don't forget, thanks to our sponsors of this week, NVIDIA, you can get a free copy. You could win a free copy of Batman Arkham Origins. Go to pcper.com/podcast, look for the post that says podcast episode 271, fill out the form, and remember, the secret code word is Perpetual
Motion Engine, not machine.
Lotion.
Or lotion.
Perpetual Lotion Engine.
Perpetual, blah, blah. It's what Josh said.
Perpetual Lotion Engine.
Yes, Perpetual Lotion Engine. If you want
Your
to
hands
watch
are
us,
going to be so soft by the time you finish writing that.
when God, if you want to watch us record this live, you can do so. We record on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live. That's where you get all the pre-show awesomeness, the post-show awesomeness, and all the stuff that we cut out of the middle of the podcast as well. And then again, if you want to share this with your friends and family and people you don't like, it's pcper.com/podcast. Tell them to go there. Tell them to subscribe. Download the podcast 1,000,000 times each week, and that would be awesome. And if you want to watch the videos of it, we post them at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/pcper. We're very easy to find across the internet. So we'll be back next week with more technology and hardware awesomeness. I'm Ryan Shrout.
Still Jeremy Hellstrom.
Yeah, Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Valentano.
I'm Scott Michaud.